Hello, our topic for today is about the conflict theory by Karl Marx.
Have you ever noticed a divide in the society between the privileged and those who are not? Someone who is rich and someone who is poor. This is what we call the conflict theory. Karl Marx, a German philosopher, revolutionary, journalist, economist, historian, and potentially Santa Claus doppelganger. Just kidding, was considered the father of conflict theory. He believed that society had always two groups. We have the oppressed and the oppressor. Let's talk about how this conflict theory operates. Conflict theory depicts that there exists a struggle because of limited resources and unlimited utilities of resources. Conflict is inevitable, right? It is a human nature to have conflict. It is not conflict is good or bad. Conflict is an unavoidable phenomenon. Nag-a-arise ang conflict kapag yung wants, desires natin ay mas marami kaysa available resources. Resources is not just something tangible like goods. It could be also power, time, and position. Further, the never-ending competition for these finite resources gives rise to conflict. Conflict theory is a way of studying a society that focuses on the inequalities of different groups in a society. It is based on the ideas of Karl Marx on the 19th century. He believed that a society evolved through several stages. Did you know that 19th century Europe was a capitalist society where the rich upper class or the bourgeoisie were minority of the population and the poor lower class called the proletariat were the majority. You might think that the majority would have more sway over the society, but it was actually the bourgeoisie that had the power. They owned the factories that produced everything people needed, and they sold what they produced to earn a living. The proletariat had only their labor to sell to make a living, and they were dependent on the factory owner to get paid. But this was not just a one-sided dependence. The factory owners were also dependent on the workers to work in the factories. Without them, their factories will not function. Though they would never admit it because they would lose some of their power. There was significant economic inequality between the factory owners and the workers. It was this economic inequality that Karl Marx believed would fuel the change in society. As the working class realized they were being exploited, they would unite to create class consciousness. This class consciousness is kind of like getting everyone on the same wavelength so they can be stronger and overthrow the capitalist status quo. And now let's talk about the assumptions of conflict theory. The makers of this theory believe that certain conditions are required for this theory to be true. Number one is the competition. The scarcity of resources such as money, land, commodities gives rise to the competition. The competition also exists in intangible resources such as status, time, respect, power, and many more. It is a competition that creates a conflict of interest. Hence, in the absence of competition, there would be no conflict. Number two, the revolution. Conflict among social classes gives rise to revolution. People change because of competition and not to be adaptive to dynamism. The people having low status aspire to be on the other side, so they change for betterment. It is well said that scarcity is the mother of innovation. Hence, it acts as a catalyst to revolution. Number three is the structural inequality. The human relationships and the structure of society is such that it experiences inequalities of power. Even in a pure socialist economy, there exist disparities. If all are equal, there may be no reason for conflict, right? Conflict theory highlights the concept of structural inequality. This theory is based on the assumption that society experiences inequalities. Some of the groups or the individual dominates the other groups, or the individuals due to the power differences. Those who have wealth and power try to keep it through any means, and they may refuse to bring any changes in the social structure. Those who have wealth can accumulate more wealth, and those who are poor become poorer due to the exploitation by the elite class. This results in a wide income gap between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat class. This means that the competition for the resources results in structural inequalities such as inequalities in the profession, income, or in rules and regulations. Nowadays, it is often seen that the big companies urge the government for the concession on the taxes to sustain the structural inequalities because it enables the business owners to retain their position and restricts the proletariat class from reaching their position. The last assumptions of conflict theory, number 4, is war. Extreme competition between the two or more groups may lead to conflict between the government of the countries. These conflicts can result in a war that may either unify the newly structured society or lead to the formation of different hierarchies. According to the conflict theory, war results in the unification and formation of new rules and regulations in society. Or we can simply say that it cleanses the society by breaking the old social structure that caused conflict in the various classes. Consider the example of World War II. This war brought numerous changes throughout the world. Several peace programs or organizations such as United Nations and the European Union were set up after World War II. Rapid changes are seen in societies due to the destruction and crisis caused by the war. The war generally occurs when it is the only way left to resolve the issues between the groups. Conflict theorists consider war as a reset in a society. Why? Because it brings sudden changes in society. However, this is not entirely true as war. War can lead to unification but only for a short period because the conflict in the society may still arise in one or the other way. In the worst case scenario, war can even lead to consequences that can never replenish, or it may even result at the end of certain groups or classes in the society.
Mahal ko si Jerome! Mahal ko si Jerome! Walang sayo, Nicole! Akin lang ang asawa ko!
To illustrate it more, the conflict theory, I want you to stay focused and lend your ears to the video that I will show to you. And later on, I will ask you a question. Alright?